Right. So design process. Talk a little bit about the context here. What is the challenge? So if you are in sales, you're probably having a situation where you have opportunities, but you really don't know where those opportunities are at exactly and when those opportunities are going to close. Maybe you experienced the frustration that every deal seems different and you don't quite know what to expect. And typically, there's no rules in terms of what is it that you need to do next to progress opportunities, the kind of steps or milestones that you need to go through. And the problem with these is uh, often that the pipeline value and the progress of those opportunities is not real. It's measured based on stages in the pipeline, such as discovery, evaluation, and whatnot, and it's not actually measured on actual deal progress. And the problem or the consequence of these problems is basically not to hit our sales targets consistently, because we need to over rely on salespeople knowledge, skills, and expertise, and everyone makes mistakes. So the possibility, what we're trying to do with this step by designing a sales process, we want to know how close or far we are from closing an opportunity. We also want our deals to follow a similar path and know basically which steps we need to take to progress and close every single opportunity. And also we want the value of our pipeline to be measured on actual deal progress, not on where they sit on the CRM or in which stages they are, i.e. evaluation or solution, whatever their names are. The value of those opportunities is not going to be based on where they sit in our CRM and pipeline. It's going to be based on actual progress, actual milestones that we will be able to measure quite accurately. And by doing this, we will basically have a framework to progress deals and opportunities consistently, which will allow us to hit our targets without, the need for us being super sales rock stars. So what are we actually trying to do here? So this is the typical sales process. Let's say this process for simplification has 4 stages. We call them discovery, which is typically where we try and understand the pain points of the clients and assess whether they're a good opportunity or not. Basically, the information, the flow of information is from them to us. Then we have solution stage, where we kind of know what they're looking for and we're trying to prove that, or actually paint a picture of how we can solve those problems. And the flow of information is kind of from us to them, although 70-30 kind of ratio. Then we have evaluation, where we show the clients whatever they need to see to help them buy and become a client. And then we have decision stage, right? Process, very simple process with 4 stages. Now, the idea is that we're going to have a set of steps throughout the process to help us know exactly how to progress those opportunities. What is it that we need to do, right? And there's going to be basically a series of checkboxes or steps throughout the cycle of different types. And then the idea is to kind of know what steps we need to go through to close that deal, right? And some of these steps are going to carry a probability, which by completing the step will increase the likelihood of progressing that deal. Yeah. And so we're going to have the checklist that I mentioned before, and we're going to have certain percentages allocated to some of those steps, which we're going to be calling milestones in a minute. Yeah. So let's say each one of those is going to have 8%, and we're going to distribute them throughout the sales cycle or sales process. And then by completing these steps, which we kind of know how to do it from the steps that we've taken in so far in this process. But the idea is that we will know what steps we have to complete to close a deal. We will kind of have to prove that we have completed or closed those steps, and then certain steps will carry a probability. And then by ticking those boxes, the deal, basically, the likelihood to close that deal will increase in the same probability, right? And so if the deal is 100K, we will be able to tell only by looking at which steps we have completed, which milestones we have completed, we will be able to give an accurate value to that specific deal or opportunity, and we will be able to measure our progress in a more scientific way. Yeah, because basically completing these steps is going to be a yes or no question that's going to leave no room for interpretation. So that's going to be things like, do you know their objectives? Do they have problems? Have they told you they have problems you can solve? Have they told you there's value and ROI in implementing your solution? And so on. And so by implementing this process, we will know what steps we need to take, what value those steps carry, demonstrate that we have completed those steps effectively, and be able to predict when deals are going to come in and what is the value of the actual pipeline. Obviously, this, once you complete the checklist, is 100% likelihood that the opportunity will close. Actually, the last checklist is going to be, do you know when the contract is coming in? And then has the contract come in? And so that's kind of the idea, right? Steps, what we need to do, and so on. And then if the deal is 100K, obviously, if you've completed 16% of that, the value of the pipeline will be 16K, right? So that's going to give us a more kind of accurate, it's gone, a more kind of accurate and specific way of measuring that progress. Cool. So before we talk about the different types of steps, I wanted to talk a little bit about the difference between sales process and methodology, which you might already know. So a sales process, imagine that you have to travel to a certain destination by car or train. A sales process is equivalent to the journey that you take. So in your journey, there's going to be, certain cities or milestones or, points of interest that you need to navigate to kind of get to your destination. Yeah. So you start here, and this is the destination. So sales process tells us the road, the journey that we need to go through to get to our destination. A sales methodology is similar to a GPS or, something like Google Maps. It will tell you whether you are at the beginning of the process, right here, or whether you are close to your destination. Yeah, where along that journey you are right now. And it will also give you specific directions that you need to take to get to the second city or point of interest as soon as possible. Yeah, so things like, make a right, make a left, go around the roundabout, whatever that may be. And so a methodology helps us understand where the deal is at and what is it that you need to do next to progress the deal, to get to the second point of interest in your journey as quickly as possible, without unnecessary trips, without wasting petrol, without wasting resources. Yeah. And so a good process that incorporates a good methodology gives a salesperson a framework that they can follow to progress opportunities consistently and close deals in a way that's more predictable. Now, what kind of steps can you find in a sales process? There are typically 5 different steps that you find in a sales process, different types. The first type of process that you find is activity. Yeah. So activities are kind of steps that you take with the prospect. Yeah. So things like discovery call, or sending a proposal, or those kind of activities that you need to do, actions that you need to take to progress the deal. Another type of step is qualifying outcome. Yeah, so qualifiers. So these steps tells us whether the opportunity that we're working on is the right type of client, whether it makes sense to focus on these opportunities, right? In the example of the process that we've been building over the last few weeks, the last few steps that we've taken, those are equivalent to, problems, solutions that they want, value, and so on. So these are qualifiers that should be measured and checked throughout the sales cycle to ensure that we're working on the right type of deals. Now, we also have milestones. And these milestones are basically checkpoints where in the sales process, we ask ourselves whether we have successfully achieved a certain outcome. Yeah, for instance, a qualifier could be asking the prospects about the problems that they're facing, but then a milestone would be, do you know, or have they told you which problems they are facing specifically? Or have they told you that those are problems that you have solutions that can solve those problems? Yeah, so kind of yes or no questions, black or white. But not everything is qualifiers, activities, and milestones. You also need to help the prospect make an informed decision by showing them value. Yeah, so value builders is important type of step as well. Value builder could be building an ROI business value calculator, for instance, or sending a summary of your understanding of what is it that the problems that they're facing and the situation of the client. Those are things that kind of build value with the client. And finally, we have buyer focus steps. And these kind of steps are steps that typically clients need to take in order to buy from you. And these are things like having a a decision criteria, establishing a decision team, and so on. And so basically, to design a successful process, you need to include a combination of all these steps. And so what we're going to be doing in next is basically We're going to list the different types of process steps that we include in our recommended sales process. And we're going to talk a little bit about why these steps are important. Then we're going to map those steps sequentially into the different stages of the sales process. And finally, you will have to analyze this exercise, do an analysis exercise to see whether there are things that you need to change or add to the process. We will give you all the different type of steps that we recommend to follow as per the methodology that we've been seeing over the last few weeks. But there are things like buyer-focused steps that we haven't incorporated simply because we just don't know how your clients buy. So it's important that we adapt this process and methodology and these best practices to your own way of working.